the feminine.
Yes.
And I think feminine energy, you know, like this whole idea, the narrative of it being like soft and gentle. Yes, it can actually be very soft and gentle and nourishing and nurturing.
It's like the ocean.
And so in turn it can be chaotic and
Exactly.
dark.
And powerful.
Right.
And
so
it can destroy,
there's a
100%.
reason why the saying is hell hath no fury like a woman's pain. And because women feel so deeply, it runs deep. And so I think that can only be expressed in the way that we dress, the way that we conduct ourselves, etc. And it's the same for men, right? Like the more they feel rejected by the feminine, the more they want to oppress the feminine. So it's a cycle. So, you know...
Do you think women feel rejected by men today?
It's really hard to answer these broad collective questions.
Yeah, okay.
Because
have
it's
you
like...
seen that? Then?
Yeah, of course.
Seen elements of
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. You can't... It's undeniable. You know, if you can't see it, you're not looking. Yeah, you're just not looking with your third eye. You're just observing with your eyes, and that's not the same thing. You're not feeling it because the reality is okay. If we think about the history of women, right?
Yeah.
Even if we think about slavery times, right? Huge oppression, huge. It's also, you know, you can't describe the pain. It's indescribable. But even if you look at then the chain effect of that, if the man who suffered that day comes home to his wife, she will also have suffered. Maybe worse, maybe not. I don't know. How do you quantify? I don't know. You'd have to look at the individual cases.
Yeah.
But he can take it out on her. And it's not to say abuse doesn't go back the other way. It does. It does, but it's smaller. It's a smaller percentage. And it's like, if you look at the pain that gets pushed onto women simply because it can be, because we don't have the physicality to be able to fight back in the same capacity, there will always be an element of that. And you can see that in today's society. Even if you look at things like rape, it's clear, you know, I don't want to say about data, because if you look at like the UK data, only 10% of reported rapes are men. And I just don't think you can even use data like that to give you a real indication of anything, because the reality is that there's more rape that goes on that is not reported, and it's a huge number by comparison to what is reported. So it's not even a data that you can use as an indication. But if you think about the sexual crimes that have been committed on women and the way that women have been publicly humiliated over the centuries. Not to say it hasn't happened to men too, it has. But I just think the quantity, it's more vast for women. I hear you. Sorry to go off. No,
I
go on.
don't disagree with the elements of what you said. I think that let's take about man has a bad day because he suffered, he comes and takes it out on the wife. That did happen for sure.
Still does.
Still does.
And also goes, I'm not saying it doesn't go the other way. I'm just saying it's the numbers are more in that direction. That's what I'm saying.
100% I would say in the physical realm, yes. Emotional realm, I think it's more the other way. I think in the emotional realm, even today, a lot of guys, part of how they show love is to try and make the woman feel better. Right?
I agree.
Sometimes taking on those emotions a lot of the time. And that's not a bad thing, but I think there are ways that men have put that on women. There are ways that women put that on men. And I think, not saying one is worse or the other, but I think it happens differently. In regards to what you were saying about about women's journey experience, which is 100% correct. Do you not think that while women have not always had the same rights as men, same opportunities as men, do you not think they have always been, when I say protected, they've never been, and I don't just mean war in terms of on the front lines, but women, especially children and young women especially, have always been the prioritized in every society.
I think maybe in extreme scenarios like war, yes. But actually I don't want to say disagree, because I don't disagree. I hear what you're saying and I think it's valid. But
also, you are allowed to disagree. I'm thinking like even like
I know I am. I know I'm allowed to disagree, but I would if I thought that. But I would like to offer another strand to that.
Go on.
And what I would say is, so like the other day I was reading about how I think this was in the UK,
Mm.
But I would imagine it happened in multiple places. Let's be honest, history's patchy.
Yeah.
It was like if a woman was too outspoken, she would literally have like a gag put over her mouth, paraded in society, and she'd have a spike in it so she couldn't speak because people didn't like what she was saying.
Where was that?
That was here in the UK.
Really?
Yeah. And that wasn't that long ago. You're only talking like 400 years ago. It's not that long. I mean, it's long, but it's not that long.
Mm.
And then if you think about things like witches, well, witches were only ever women and they were burned at the stake. They were burned alive in public.
Yeah.
And that went on longer than things like beheading of all genders.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think the reality is that humanity's in a lot of pain. And so coming back to the dating today,
yes,
the reason why I brought all those things up was because I feel that, listen, what I work in is pain, right? I work in energetics.
Yeah.
And I teach people how to feel pain and release it. And I make it a little bit more comfortable for them, or try to.
Yeah.
I seem to be okay at doing it.
She's being humble, guys.
So, and this is coming from someone that like is not scared to feel pain. Like I can sit in my pain, I can sit in my sorrow, and I can wallow in it and use it to my advantage. It's, it's alchemy. It's literally what I teach. But when I think about what humanity has been through and what we've done to each other, and we think about things like, let's say, World War II, and people say in this day and age, well, how could that have happened? Because it's incremental psychological warfare from the people that control the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about pushing the power of the human down. And by separating us, like if men are against women and then therefore women are against men, then we're divided. And obviously we already know we're stronger united. And so I feel like what's really going on in today's societies, I still think we've got a bit of this like emotional war, psychological war between men and women. Like all men are like this and women are like this. And
I feel like that's happened
forever.
Yeah, but I feel like that's been more exacerbated over the past 10, 15 years.
I agree. I massively agree.
But which is interesting because the standard of living has only gotten better. We have more.
Has it?
Well, I
Has
would
it?
say so. Yeah, for sure.
Has
I
it
mean,
though?
yeah. Do you not think?
I don't think. I think. Okay.
I think we're just how we describe
I always
standards.
move in grey because I think that there is no black and white, right? Like for every argument, there's a counter argument. If you can take the most positive thing in the world, there'll still be a negative to it. It's just,
sure. I'm saying like in terms of the balance of scales.
You mean between gender equality? Is that what you mean?
Sorry, no. I meant like actual living life.
Right, that's
like,
what I mean.
We don't worry about if we're going to get food today, or if we're going to get water today, or we don't worry about.
I don't know. Is that true? Because America's technically a first world country, but when I go to America, I look at it and I don't know how it is a first world country, but they measure it on things like GDP, which to me isn't real life. Like it's not that GDP isn't a real thing. Of course it is. But when you look at the quality of the lives lived in America, if you have money, absolutely, you can have an amazing life in America.
Sure.
But when you drive down Skid Row, I've never seen anything like it in my life. That doesn't scream first world country to me.
Yeah, but that's in a major city. If you go into the
But my point being, it's still a first world country, right? And that's the quality of life in the world power country. The country that's got the most dominance in the entire world has a homelessness problem and has an opiate problem. So is that really good quality of living? Does that mean those people aren't worried about where they're getting their next piece of food from? Because I don't think so. I've been homeless in this country and I come from a working class family with a mother that was a teacher. If you met all my family members, you'd be so surprised. How did this girl end up homeless for nearly 2 years? I don't know. I don't know that that's true because I've been hungry. I've 100% gone days without eating, and not because I chose to fast like I do now, because I had no access to food or money. I mean, to be honest with you, I stole, so it was fine back then. But like, it was just like I needed to eat.
Burner at the stake.
So no, don't do that.
No, so I didn't say they have a great quality of life. I didn't say everyone has a good quality of life, but I'm comparing that the people who were in the what we would say maybe on the lower end of society and culture compared to 40 years ago, they're in a better place. The people who were there 40 years ago, they're better than the people there before 50 years before that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying by any means that everybody has a good quality of life, but the standard of living has improved. There are less people starving today than 30 years ago. I remember the UN were like bragging about it or whatever, right? Does that mean there aren't improvements to be made? Of course there are. But when I was talking about this psychological warfare between men and women, I think a big part as to why, especially over the past 50, 60 years, why we've seen this divide between men and women is because we don't need each other anymore.
Correct. I agree with you.
I think
that's an illusion too. I'm the first to be like, I need men all the time. I love men. I want men to help me all the time.
Okay, but here's the difference is though, I think before the past 100 years, people paired up because that's how they would survive.
Correct.
It was like, if you and I don't make this work, like we don't have a future.
Yeah. So
there was a much stronger incentive, actually the strongest incentive, which is to survive. Now we don't need each other to survive. We've not needed each other to survive for the past 50 years. And now when you give people free agency, it seems like, oh, this is actually what ends up happening, which begs the question. And I disagree with you in asking this question, but I'm going to. Are men and women meant to be together?
Of course. Come on. Of course. It's magnetism. You can't deny it because that's literally.
But why is it when we have more freedom, we seem more divided?
Is it more freedom? Okay.
It's a good question.
Okay. So previously, women were expected to be monogamous so that the man knows that he's raising children that are his.
Yes.
And previously, men were given free agency. And
I wouldn't say free
roughly overall, like let me run with the point that I'm running with, like right. just for the sake of the argument, it's like, but it was free agency because the woman could never divorce the man for cheating on her, but he could divorce her for cheating on him.
Well, yeah,
once divorce was allowed.
Sure, yeah. The deal between men and women in marriage,
yeah,
right? Men had to provide and protect, right? Even if they divorced, he still had to provide.
True.
Right? So he was still doing that even if she decided to leave. And yeah, she had to be monogamous to him. That was the deal.
But she didn't get to leave before. Women couldn't leave their husbands before.
Well, it depends how far back you go.
Right. But anyway, so hang on, I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry. Like, where was I heading?
I asked you if men and women should be together. And I said, do we have more freedom? And you asked, do we have more freedom? So
I was reading something the other day. And it was saying how there's a new era of, you know how we've got brackets of like ages and gender, like you just said at the beginning, you know, what's my age bracket type thing. Yeah. And apparently there's a new bracket era of women where they're between sort of 30 and 40 something, and they're single and they're happy because they have to deal with the bullshit of whatever a relationship brings. Okay, I have a few thoughts on this. I see that, I hear that, understand that. We spoke about this before. I think generally speaking, the quality of behavior amongst people in society is not good enough, in my own humble opinion.
Okay.
That might be triggering for some people. I agree, it's triggering. The reason I don't think the behavior is good enough is because if the behavior was good enough, then we wouldn't be avoiding each other. Because what's happening is now women can earn their own money. They don't need a man to provide them. Previously, women couldn't work. You had to have a husband to survive, or otherwise your dad or your brother has to look after you, or you'll die, or they'll get rid of you or sell you because you are a burden, right? Whereas now, women can run businesses, they can work for themselves, they can have jobs, they are allowed to demand equal pay, etc. Right? So now we can pay our own bills. We don't need the man.
Yes.
Right? But men need to be needed. Men need to be needed.
Do we though?
Yeah, they do. Psychologically, look into it. Men need to be needed. They need to feel
why
needed.
We all do.
We all. Okay, right. So if we look at, if we go into psychology, right, there are layers to everything we experience, right? So when someone is emotionally triggered by something, there's layers to it. So when you feel left out of your friends doing something without you, or your girlfriend doesn't text you back for 8 hours and you feel rejected, yeah, that's really what the root is. The root is a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment. The reason why we all have those rooted wounds, right, and we'll never ever get rid of them, they'll never be fully healed, it's not possible, is because if you go back into our tribal era, if you were pushed out of your tribe, you would die. You would literally die. So that's why it's so deep rooted within us to have a fear of rejection, a fear of abandonment. And underneath those wounds, I brought this up in the last pod that we did, is I am not good enough. And there is truth to that in some ways, right? It's like if someone beats me up and I leave them, it's absolutely true. Your behavior was not good enough.
Yep.
right? It doesn't mean you as an individual is not good enough, but it means that you now need to, if you want to have healthy relationships, you might want to go and look at that and go and apply yourself to managing your anger and your emotions and how you communicate. And I think what a lot of people are doing in this day and age, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I see, from what I observe, and it's kind of natural, so I'm not condemning it, but we're all very focused on improving our own experience. I want a man that ticks this, 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 and this box. And I want a woman that ticks this, this, and this box. Or I want a partner. Cool. But what's their experience with you? So people are so focused on this is what I want to experience. And that's good. You need to have that clarity so that you choose well, right? Because choosing your spouse is the most, in my opinion, the most important decision you'll ever make in your life.
I agree.
And so you should have high standards. But in order to meet those high standards and have that caliber of human being in your life, you need to be very conscious of people's experience with you. So one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently in terms of my own, like reviewing myself, is like when people are communicating with me, I want them to enjoy the experience. I want to give them an experience that they enjoy. And I also want to leave them better than I find them. Now, I'm a human being too, and I'm going to have bad days too. So I can't possibly do that 100% of the time. It's not possible to operate like that all of the time. But when you have that level of mindfulness, you can probably do it a majority of the time, right?
Yeah.
And also just having that intention is a good way to move forward with your life. I think, right? I think that if every single person on the planet said, today, I'm going to conduct myself in a way where I would like to be mindful that everybody that communicates with me has an enjoyable experience within reason. Obviously, if someone throws a knife at your head or something, like, cool, I understand you might not want to hug them. Yeah. But you know what I'm trying to say, right? I want everybody to have a positive experience when they communicate with me.
Yeah.
And positive can look different in different scenarios, right? So if everybody moved like that, just imagine what that would be like. And I think people are so caught up in like, this is what I want to experience. And that's fine. But also, what experience are you offering?
Hope you really enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode where that clip is from, then I want you to click right here where you can watch the full episode. And if you're ready to claim your man today, enroll in my program below, and I'll see you there. Wishing you an amazing day.